All right, everyone. Good evening. Brian Russell here, League Director. Welcome to the Mayhem at Mayodan Town Hall. Glad you could join us tonight. I've got several of the staff members here with me, including Shel Frost, our Programs Director, Todd Lester, the Race Director, Ben Harbor, Race Operations, Diane LeBlanc, Volunteer Coordinator, and because we have camping on site for this one, Michael Lashley, our Camping Coordinator. And I don't see Sean Moore on the line quite yet. Might be dialing in a few minutes. But anyway, the intent here is to walk everyone through the weekend, whether you are a first-time race weekend type of person or you've been here before. Many of us that have been in the league have been to Mayodan several times. The intent here is to brief you on the plan for Mayodan, walk you through Saturday, walk you through Sunday, get your questions answered. We've got a couple changes for the weekend. We'll walk you through whether procedurally or course-wise. And yeah, just the intent here is to get all your questions answered. And I see that Sean already has his hand up. So Sean, what you got?
I was just letting you know I was here.
Excellent. Present. So with that, let me just walk through the format real quick. Like we've done in all of our previous town halls, we'll spend the first 30 minutes walking through the schedule, just like I described, various staff members walking through their aspects of how they support the weekend. While we're doing that, feel free to put any questions you have in the chat window. The respective staff member will do their best to answer that question as we go along. And then at the 30-minute mark, we will just open the floor, so to speak, for any questions we didn't get answered through the first 30 minutes. As has become tradition here in North Carolina, the first student athlete to ask a question tonight will win a prize. Tonight, I thought it might be appropriate to award the North Carolina Interscholastic Cycling League fender for your bike. Might be a little sloppy this weekend out of Mayodan, so a fender might come in handy. So again, first student athlete to ask a question, we're all here for you. Let us know what's on your mind about Mayodan, and we'll have that reserved for you. And Jacob Bettinger, I still have your socks from the last one, man. So if you're on the line again tonight, we'll get you your socks this weekend. So for that, like I normally do, let me start sharing my screen. For those that have been around the league for a while, you know that really all the information about how the weekend works is contained in the flyer for the weekend. So to find that at any point, go to our website, click on the program overview tab at the top, come down here to events and race results, click on that, and that will bring you to our events page. Scroll down to the venue that interests you, and for everyone tonight, that would be Mayhem at Mayodan, and right there at the top, you will find a link to our flyer. We'll talk about a couple of these other categories as we go through the night, but just while I'm on this page, you can also find the link to our volunteer sign up. Because we have camping for this venue, link to the camping. Ben Harbor put together the pit zone map so you can find out where your team area is inside the pit zone, and that is also linked in the flyer. You can find that there. And then right now, call-up list, because we had a couple registration changes today. Probably tomorrow morning, we'll have the call-up lists posted on the website, and I will put those in the flyer as well, right above the wave start tables in the flyer. So anyway, we're going to spend a little bit of time tonight going through the flyer. Just click on that link and you can see here for Mayhem at Mayodan, little venue description, how to find the place. And then really what you're probably interested in is the table of contents right here. And those are all bookmarked. So as we're about to turn it over to Diane here to talk volunteers, you can click on the link there, brings you right to the page you might be interested in on the flyer. So with that, Diane, why don't you give us a status check on volunteers and where we might need some extra help and what folks can expect when they show up this weekend. Diane.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our town hall this evening, volunteer coordinator. And yes, we do need more volunteers for the weekend. Right now we're at 64%. And so we have a total of 258 volunteer spots for the weekend. 164 of those have been filled. We do have spots that we call mission critical, and those spots are spots that unfortunately can only be filled by coaches, and those would be our course marshal spots and our roving marshals. I believe most of our roving marshals spots, volunteer spots, are filled, but it is the static course marshals that we really need. We need volunteers to be on the course during the race. It is mission critical. We can't do the race without that. We do have some other spots at what we really need. We have no parking volunteers. As far as I know, I haven't clicked on this to open it up, but when I looked at it late this afternoon, we needed parking volunteers for, I believe it's Sunday morning. So there are a lot of volunteer opportunities. I need to remind you that when you volunteer, the team that your student athlete is with does get points. We are keeping track of those. So we will have a team at the end of the season, or 3 teams that will be getting recognized. And then the other thing I need to mention too is that we feed our volunteers. And so we do our very best to take care of you when you volunteer, because we cannot pull off these race weekends without you. You are a crucial part to what we do. If you have any questions, hit me up in the chat, or you can shoot me an email at diane@northcarolinamtv.org, and I will absolutely get back to you as soon as possible. So please come and help us make this race happen. Thanks, Brian.
Diane, thank you very much. And as I scroll up back to the table of contents, I will just point out right here, food trucks. If you're a volunteer, you get a ticket to one of those yummy food trucks. So we'll give you lunch Saturday or Sunday when you show up to volunteer. So thanks everyone for signing up. We really can't do it without you. And so, yeah, please take a look at those spots and sign up for some of those critical areas Diane was talking about. What I'd like to do now is go down to an overview of the venue, and I'm going to turn it over to Ben Harbor, Race Operations, to walk us through an overview of the venue, what to expect when you come in, and we'll talk a little bit about camping and talk a little bit about the course itself while we're on this topic. So Ben, you ready to take it from me?
Yes,
and
sir.
goes through? All right, I'm going to stop sharing then.
Cool deal.
Over to you.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
I'll share out. So like Brian mentioned in our race flyer, you can click on this beautiful link that'll bring you to the park layout. As you come in Park Road, you'll be turning left, more than likely coming into the parking lot. We will have our typical 5-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. Please respect that, as people will be walking down the same path you're trying to drive to get to either pit zone or to your parking areas. As you come into the park, there will be a long asphalt driveway here. This is where a lot of the parking is going to be taking place to unload pit zone to this lovely pink ball field, is what we call the lower baseball field. Tent camping will be up here on the upper ball field. So there'll be people coming in and splitting both ways, left and right, to be able to unload. RV parking is you go all the way to the end of the parking lot. So again, be mindful of people unloading, moving bikes, moving gear, walking back and forth as you drive through down to the lower parking. There is a little bit of a gravel field, and then they have a soccer field that they're going to potentially offer up for more RV parking. So that's the lay of the land. I will zoom in carefully. And you can see a little bit more detail as to where our league truck and registration and merch will be, as we typically set it up. As soon as you roll in, you'll see us there, and our food trucks will wrap around that corner as well. Any questions regarding the entrance and layout of our infield and parking and camping locations? For now, we've got more to discuss in a minute.
Okay, any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat, or we'll certainly have time at the end. I think it might be a good time here, Ben, to hand it over to Michael Lashley for a minute or two, just talk about camping and what campers can expect when they come in and where they'll be. Just point those areas out to them again. Michael, you ready to walk us through some camping?
Sure. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Like Ben was pointing out, the baseball field on your right as you turn to the venue is tent camping. I'll mix weather into this as we're going along. Tent camping will happen as long as the race happens. There's no issues there. If you continue past the baseball field through the parking area, right where past the P, straight into the purple soccer field, that's where the soccer field RV parking will take place. This parking is very weather dependent. During the phone call tomorrow, the decision will be made whether or not RV parking can be allowed on that field due to wet conditions or not. So I have emails for everyone. I'll be sending out a note, some sort of communications to let everyone know what's going on with that after the meeting tomorrow. Of course, if the race gets canceled, then it's a non-issue, and then everybody gets refunds for their camping. As far as timing goes, if you're a volunteer and you're coming in to set up Friday or Saturday, if you're going to arrive before about 3 o'clock on Friday, if you don't mind shooting me an email note, camping@northcarolinamtb.org, so that I can kind of know when to expect you and where to put you. But otherwise, we'll be getting everything set up early Friday for the campers to arrive that afternoon or Saturday. The other thing I will mention, there's a couple of teams that have reserved the picnic shelters, what I call the picnic shelters. As you're coming in on Park Road, instead of turning left into the venue where the parking is, you would go to the driveway right past the Ferris Memorial Park Maintenance site and go up that driveway, stay to the left at the fork and go behind the pond, and the 2 picnic shelters are up there, and we'll have volunteers to show you guys where those are as well. And I'll be sending out an email directions to the 2 teams that reserve those, so they'll have better better access to figure out how to get there. That's it. Did anyone have any questions about the camping?
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. Certainly throw your questions about camping in the chat or catch us at the end. Before we go into the broad Q&A, as part of my closing comments, I will walk everyone through just how I see the weather for this weekend right now, and just a little bit about how we make a weather decision on the Thursdays. That's probably the elephant in the room. We'll just address that at the end. And then before we move off the venue overview, could Todd or Ben, could you walk us through some course considerations, particularly start and finish, which might be different than last year, and things we may have to do just given some rain this weekend? And I think Haley W is our first student athlete question, who asked how long this race course was. So if we could answer that, that'd be great. Todd or Ben?
Yeah, Ryan, excuse me. Hey, this is Todd here. You are correct. Haley was the first one to ask a question, and she asked about the race course, which I answered in the text as well, or on the message as well. But it's right about 4.1 miles, not including the start chute, which of course is always being adjusted the day we arrive, depending on the venue and lay of the land. So the course, the start chute will ultimately be around that field area of the golf driving range. That's typically where we start setting up. This year, since we're having the start chute enter after the finish, we may be running it in reverse order. So that means we will be starting in the field and coming up across the dam into the single track at that point. And the exit, we have not quite, or excuse me, not the exit included, but the finish line will also be coming out of the woods down where we typically have it in that general area, but we are not exactly sure yet. Once we get on site and we can walk it and lay it out, then we'll know for sure. It's a great course. It's fast rolling. plenty of small rocks, and just it's a fast rolling course, so it's a lot of fun, in my opinion. Ben, you got anything to add to that?
I think you covered it, sir.
Thank you, sir. Back to you, Ryan.
I'll
Okay.
put a shameless plug in that I'm probably the deepest baritone Vanna White y'all have ever seen in your life.
All right, I'm gonna go back to my screen then, Ben.
Go right ahead.
And then, yeah, so there we are. Thanks for the overview, guys. Got folks coming in Saturday morning, starting to get set up, and really the two things we do on Saturday, course inspection and the programs event. So I'd like to turn over to Sean Moore now to walk us through course inspection, a little bit different than we've done it before. And any of the coaching tips, Sean, you want to walk folks through would be great. So over to you, Sean.
All right. So for course inspection, we're going to actually continue what we did in the abbreviated race schedule that we had for Dark Mountain. We had a lot of positive feedback on how we did it. So with that being said, the course inspection under the red flag is going to be for coaches to take out student athletes that are racing single lap races. So that would be your middle school B boys, 7B, 8B, your female middle school student athletes, and your sixth grade boy student athletes. Preferably what I think would work best is if you will split your groups into your more experienced riders and your less experienced riders. Send your first experienced riders out first with, of course, a coach-led group. So adhering to those coach-led guidelines that we have, and then hold back and let kind of all the teams send out their experienced riders, then send out your coach-led group with your inexperienced riders. This will allow you to kind of have a bit more time with them for sessioning things, stopping and looking, discussion, that sort of thing. What I am feeling has worked best with these rides is that you go into this with the expectation that you are not passing the group in front of you. If they stop, you stop. The real thing here is under red flag. So from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, that's an hour and a half. Reasonable expectation is that you make one lap through with this. If we send those faster groups out first and they don't need to stop as much, then you may be able to squeeze in another lap, but you're going to run into those groups that are stopping a lot, and adhering to that not passing rule is going to be really key so that no one feels rushed, no one feels pressured to get out of the way. There's not any misunderstanding or miscommunication. The yellow flag is going to be exactly like the red flag, except this time we're opening up the course for coach-led groups of student athletes involved in multi-lap races. So this is all high school as well as middle school A females and 8A, 7A male racers. Same idea applies. Expect to do one lap. Expect to have to stop and wait if someone needs to stop. Don't pass the group in front of you. Now, if there's an issue with your group, something that, say there's a mechanical or something that happens that you need to stop and deal with that's going to take a while, by all means, move your entire group off of the course and then communicate with the groups behind you to go ahead and pass through so that you can take care of the issue. Those groups that are passing through, as you're passing a stopped group, eventually there's going to come a point to where they're going to want to reintegrate back in. Please respect that they need to reintegrate back in. And so if you happen to be the one that you let in front of them, remember that that's a good thing and you're letting them get back in to complete their course preview. Again, expect to do one lap under these yellow flag conditions. And then green flag is where we then allow our student athletes to go out using the buddy system without coaches. And we want to limit this to experienced student athletes. So really try to make this, those student athletes that you know are good on their own, they're not going to have a problem, buddy them up. They're the ones that can then go out and enjoy the green lap conditions. So under the green flag, they're going to be able to ride from 4:15 to 5:30. They can start their last lap no later than 5:15. And then at 5:30, we will have coaches meet up at the start line, and all coaches, we will go out and do a coach ride to sweep the course and make sure there's no one else out on course. Are there any questions about this?
Sean, would you like to cover some of your coach tips briefly? I thought you did a
Sure.
good job getting those in there for today. I'll scroll to those.
So Mayodan is a tale of rock, and there's two kind of big key elements about the rocks, and they are rock gardens and then large kind of bouldery style rocks that are actually in the trail that need to be negotiated around. And what needs to happen is that with rock gardens, it really is about working with your student athletes to be able to maintain their ready position, to maintain level pedals, and to maintain their momentum. So as a lifelong cross-country rider, it is our initial reaction that when we encounter something scary, we grab brakes. That's just sort of the inclination of the cross-country racer. Whereas if you talk to downhillers, the inclination when they get scared is to jump. So for us, we have sort of the bad reaction, and that is that we kill our momentum. Momentum is your friend, and we want to carry that momentum through the rock garden. Work with your student athletes to think about rock gardens as being puzzles and being able to visualize where all the puzzle pieces are and then fitting them together at speed. And those inexperienced student athletes, you really are going to want to take some time to maybe take a look at what line choices there are, what alternative lines there are, and then get them to ride those rock gardens with a bit of pace and get them to understand that there's a plan A, but to be ready to go to plan B, plan C, plan D, just depending upon how their bike happens to track through the rock. One thing I do want to ask, and we've seen this in the past, is coaches, please do not move rocks in the rock gardens. We saw this the past 2 seasons. And what I'd like to see is that you understand that we don't modify the course to meet our skills. We improve our skills to match the course. And I want you to definitely be keeping that in mind whenever you are looking at this with your students. The last is the actual big sort of almost bowling ball plus size rocks that can sit in sections of the trail. And this is one of those things where students need to be able to shift their pedals up and down in order to allow for clearance. So that pedal awareness is really key. Kind of think about it like whenever we teach ratcheting, how we talk about pedal awareness and pedal strikes and how we ratchet to avoid those pedal strikes. This is going to be the same thing with some of these rocks because they're realistically very in the trail and kind of the bike is moving in and out of them. So help students feel comfortable with shifting those pedals up and down in order to clear objects. And I gave her an idea of like a simple field activity that you can do with some large balls and making a piece of tight single track with some sections of rope, just to get them to feel what it's like to know kind of where their pedals are and then to shift their pedals up or down in order to miss those obstacles and navigate their way through. Are there any questions on that?
Sean, thanks so much for that. I think we'll transition over to Shell and talk a little bit about programs on Saturday. And if you listen to your Grit podcast, I'm expecting some type of epic Uno battle on Saturday during board game hour. So I can't wait for that. We'll need to tell Deb to get over the camera. But Shell, go for it.
Hey, so our adventure area is going to be open from 12:30 until 5:30. You can come play bike games. There's going to be a ton of yard games. You can build your own skills course or challenge your friends to a skills course. So there'll be lots to do there. We also will have information on how you can sign up for our league-wide scavenger hunt. That will be taking place at our final event weekend. I just dropped some information about that in the chat if anyone wants to save that. Teams need to be registered by May 15th to take part in that. So again, activities at that adventure tent will be open to all student athletes from 12:30 to 5:30. And then for our grit area, if you haven't been to a full-blown grit Saturday at an event weekend, you're in for a treat. weather permitting. We will have everything out. There are tons of games, tons of crafts, inflatable couches. We are going to have at 2:30 a health, wellness, and nutrition chat with Sheila Dalton. She's a certified health wellness coach. From about 11:50, we will have our check-in for the Grit pre-ride for those who registered in the pit zone. At 3 o'clock, sorry, we'll have the Grit re-ride for multi-lap student athletes that does not require registration in the pit zone. 4 o'clock, we'll be having a mechanical clinic. 4:30, we have our mentor program activity taking place. And then at 4:30, we will also have a board game hour, which any female student athletes can come take part in, battle it out in Uno or about 30 other board and card games that we have. So, and then at 7:30, we will have our S'mores Under the Stars, our first Grit evening activity of the year. So that should be pretty fun. We have about 40 female student athletes registered for that. So.
All right. Thank you, Shell. And if you got any remaining questions about Saturday, please throw them into the chat window, or we'll hit them here in about 5 to 10 minutes when we go to Q&A. What I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about Sunday. I think particularly important for head coaches or team rep to show up at that 8 o'clock Sunday morning meeting. Just we are dealing with some weather this weekend. If we're going to make any changes to race schedules, race course, whatever, we're going to discuss it at that 8 o'clock meeting on Sunday with everyone. Let me go down to wave start times and just mention a couple things. Again, should probably have call-up lists on the website and linked here in the flyer for the first time tomorrow morning. We are fairly familiar, having run a couple races now, with the call-up process. Everyone knows what their rank is in their category or field. Show up at your staging time, and yours truly starts calling every athlete by name into the start chute, and Shell's at the end of that start chute to help me filter the athletes in there. That has worked very smoothly as far as I can tell for a couple races, and we'll just continue to do that. So again, call up lists by tomorrow morning, and then we'll just call off the names when we start each of the categories and staging. What I did want to point out, because it's different, and since we didn't do Quaker Lake, we've modified the schedule for Wave 2, the JV1 and freshman boys, based on some race data. We're finding that the order we've listed them here on the schedule is pretty much how fast they're racing. So we're trying to reduce passing opportunities with these very large fields. So we're going to start with JV1 Field 1 and followed immediately by the 2 freshman fields, freshman boys Field 1, then freshman boys Field 2. JV1 boys Field 2 will be the last in this wave to go out. And again, like we asked before Quaker Lake, looking on our Tuesday coaches call after this race for feedback, please talk to your athletes in this category, see if that worked better for them. And again, just reduce some of that bunching up on the trails and the passing opportunities. So before I close with just some comments about the weather, I did want to give Sean one more time to talk anything from a rules perspective, and then Todd anything about closing out the race day. So Sean, anything you want to cover?
For rules, no, just I guess please make sure that student athletes and coaches have their number plates on their bikes at all times whenever they reach the venue for the duration. That is really, really helpful, and it helps us to understand who should be on course at any given time.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. And Todd, just some description of how we close out the day. There we are. Last wave is coming in. What can folks expect on finishing up the day?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's the end of the day, always a sad time, wrapping things up. So everybody can get out of there and get home. As soon as we send out that first wave, we typically tear down the start chute and stop once we get to the course. And then we really, I can't express how much we appreciate the help that we get when it's an all hands on deck, everybody closing off. Once that last racer finishes, comes through the finish line, and we just start tearing down the infield, send off the course setting crew so they can clean up the course. And getting everything to the trailer so we can get it buttoned up and get our award ceremony started. So again, we appreciate all the hands and bringing in all the gear so we can load up the trailer and get everybody out of there at a reasonable time.
Okay, thanks for that, Todd. I am going to share one more thing. And like I promised, talk a little bit about the weather for this weekend. So what I'm sharing on the screen right now is basically what I use to discuss weather conditions through the weekend with some core staff members on Thursday, right before noon. Todd's online, Ben's online, our chief course marshal is online, chief course setter, the land manager, who always gets a vote in this, whether they will let us on the trails or what we might need to do to mitigate weather. And then our meteorologist, which for this league is Elizabeth Gardner of WRAL, who has a kid on one of our teams, which is super cool. So I'm getting some great weather advice, no doubt about that. But really what we're dealing with this weekend is 2 periods of rain. And what everyone can see right now is the forecast for Friday. I'm circling that right there. That's upwards of 1 inch of rain on top of Mayodan on Friday. Good news, the forecast has shifted over about the past week and a lot less rain through the week. We thought originally Wednesday, Thursday would be wet days, and then also Friday. Right now, it just looks like a lot of rain on Friday. The good news is if I scroll down here, so here's Friday to the left, this is Saturday. It's clear right now, but then again on Sunday, we've got another period of rain at about a 40 to 50% chance right now, which is what that bar represents. This is probably one of the hardest weather calls you'll ever have to make. Others are fairly easy. Salisbury, no one liked that decision, but it was a temperature threshold, pretty cut and dry. Dark Mountain, we had to shift. When the National Weather Service tells you to stay out of the woods, you stay out of the woods, and it's pretty easy. The ability for a trail to soak upwards of 1 inch of rain and then handle 500 plus riders over the course of 2 days is pretty tough to determine. So we're going to take a look at it tomorrow morning, make the best determination we can, and get the word out to everyone by noon tomorrow. And I am sensitive to the fact that I pulled a lot of folks through a knothole for Quaker Lake by making a very late decision to try and pull this off. Everyone here wants to get this weekend done. Everyone wants to see everyone again. I just need to make sure we're doing that safely. And again, we'll just make the best decision we can and move forward from there. So hopefully that gives everyone a little bit of insight on the factors we consider going into this. And then all the other mitigation means course modifications, course, we could shorten the course. If it's super wet, we might reduce the race in some capacity, just try and beat the rain on Sunday. There's a lot of things we can do. And like Michael said, sometimes the land manager says, I'm not going to let you park trailers on the field. And that impacts a lot of our families who might be struggling to find a place to stay. So a lot of things to consider. We'll turn it for about a half an hour tomorrow morning. And again, just make the best decision we can. So with that, we're just over 30 minutes, but still plenty of time left for questions. Shell, if you can just review the chat. If we've missed anything, let's get that on the table first. But if folks want to raise their hand and get their questions out, let's go ahead and do that now.
I believe we got everything in the chat, unless Abby needed maybe more clarification on whether or not RVs can be parked in the parking lot during the day.
I think maybe Ben, if you want to start first, we talked a little bit about, hey, with a lot of rain, that field isn't super, super,
Yeah.
but why don't you just kind of take that one first?
Yeah, so again, this goes into the weather decision tomorrow at the land manager. We certainly have 700 cars we've got to park somewhere on their field. And then those that are in RVs, both driving and hauling, we need to figure out where we can park those. If you're off site and we're able to hold the race this weekend, there will be a little bit of parking on the paved parking lot between the 2 ball fields. I'm not sure that we can get more than 5 vehicles with trailers attached or a large 30-foot driving RV, because all the other vehicles that we'll need on site and to be able to get to all the stuff we need to get to. So it's going to be super tight. I cannot predict or say how many spaces we'll have open, because it depends on the number of people arriving in vehicles. So if possible, it'd be better to have those big, large driving or hauling RVs off-site and then picked up later after the race weekend is over.
Thanks, Ben. One quick question. Would it be possible to park across the street where the pavilions are?
We'll ask the land manager tomorrow
Okay.
to find out what's available on that side, because they've been doing some renovations and had some camping available last year. And I think they've been doing some more renovations. So we'll certainly bring that up tomorrow and get
Okay,
back.
great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Michael Heightfield from Down East Dirt Dogs had his hand up. So Michael.
Hey, thanks. I remember Dark Mountain, we did all of the pre-ride and race stuff on Sunday. If Saturday is looking like it might be clear, is there any discussion about doing a long day like that on Saturday instead and not sweating Sunday?
Michael, it's an option we can consider. Why that may not work out well for us is because Friday is an absolute mess. And the reason we were able to pull off Dark Mountains because it had all day Friday to set up. And so it's really a pinch bringing folks in for an immediate course inspection into a race without the preparation from all the staff to get it set. So like the idea, it's in our hip pocket, but it's really tough to pull off. Any other questions? I thought I saw a question from Jim Molnar in the chat. Did someone answer that one? I'm just not manipulating my chat window well.
I did respond. It was asking whether or not we're permitted to race in rain if the land manager allows it.
Yeah, really, it's a land manager decision and then a safety consideration on putting kids on that slick course and whatever we can do to make trail modifications to still pull off a decently safe race. But yeah, we could race in some rain. That's the bottom line. Thank you, Show. Any other questions? I suspect we get through these town halls quicker and with fewer questions each time we do them because we're generally familiar with how things are running right now. But we will certainly keep the mic open for a few more minutes to make sure all questions are answered before we hit pause on the recording. And Haley W, what team are you with? Was that IC Imagine I saw in the chat? So I know where this wonderful fender is going.
Haley is IC Imagine's one and only Bob Ross.
Ooh. There's a movie about that coming out, in there?
And a Cognitive MTB shirt.
Oh, that's right. I saw that too. League sponsor, Cognitive MTB. Way to work them in there. It's nice. Okay, we might have reached our culmination point at about the 40-minute mark here on the town hall. So Sean, I think I'm going to end the recording here for the town hall, and we'll keep the mic open just a couple more minutes. If I could ask the staff to stay online after we finish the recording, that would be great. But thanks everyone for attending, and fingers crossed, we'll see you this weekend in Mayodan.